You ever have just one of those days that sometimes it happens? Sometimes it happens. The Roman Empire. A lot of people are talking about Rome. There's this challenge going on. Ask your significant other how often they think about Rome. And people are finding, yeah, they think about Rome a lot. And out of the three men in our household, we only have one that thinks about Rome a lot. And he is a ancient history and geography person. So he talks about Rome a lot. And as a matter of fact, he plays Age of Empires with me. And I like Age of Empires. And yeah, that's part of it. It's kind of a historical-ish game strategy. And yeah, we have a lot of fun with that. So, hi, I'm Dawnita. Just recorded this whole video. I don't know how long I've been sitting here doing this. And no, I did not record because I forgot to push record. So I talked through this whole video and didn't push record. So I'm feeling like a real dork right now. Anyway, I was talking to some friends earlier today and we were discussing this whole Roman Empire thing. And they're like, you should do a podcast on this. And I'm like, well, I don't think I'm going to do a podcast because I need to show some things. So it probably won't be a podcast. I'm going to throw it up on the, I don't know how many people are listening to podcasts these days. Do you listen to podcasts? If you do, let me know what you like to listen to. Shelly is helping me. Shelly from There's No Place Like Home is helping me with the podcast now. And she's going to be jumping on there doing some podcasts. And we renamed it 10 Hot Talks Question the Narrative podcast. And so if you've got some ideas on some things you would like for us to talk about and you enjoy a podcast, let me know. Because sometimes podcasts are just easier to record. I tend to remember to push the record button whenever I do a podcast, right? Anyway. My goodness. It's been one of those days. I woke up this morning to a text message and I'm like, oh, I'm going to get around. So I went in to brush my teeth and Paul comes in with this video that Catherine had sent, our oldest, and he starts making me laugh while I'm brushing my teeth. And it was a problem. It was really funny. So anyway, the merry-go-round and the guy is pulling the merry-go-round with the vehicle and, older guys on merry-go. It's just bad. Anyway, okay, I will screen share. Okay, this is where we're starting. We've got the Roman Empire. Rome was supposedly started by Romulus and Remus, who were fed by a mama wolf, all those kinds of things, right? And we've got the Roman Republic, the Roman Empire, the Western Roman Empire, and the Eastern Roman Empire. And before that, we even had the Roman Kingdom, right? Okay, so you've got Rome. And I think one of the big reasons that people are thinking about Rome a lot right now is, number one, we are kind of we're kind of the image to the beast here in the United States, okay? You look at Rome, you look at Washington, D.C., and they are laid out basically the same, right? We are kind of an image to the beast as far as biblically speaking. Rome started out basically, they had the Roman kingdom, but they started out as a republic. And when the republic crumbled, whenever it changed to a democracy, the decline began, and downhill from there, right? And that's what we the United States of America is a constitutional republic. It's not a democracy, it is a constitutional republic. And I get very frustrated with elected officials who start talking about democracy. That's not what we're supposed to be. Those elected officials have made an oath to the Constitution and to uphold the Constitution, and they don't even, they're talking about a democracy, and that's not what we are. That's not what we're supposed to be anyway. And because people have been thinking that we're a democracy and people are trying to make us into a democracy, I mean, that's whoosh, that's what's happening. Okay. In a nutshell. Once you start a democracy, it goes into tyranny. A republic is stable, it's self-checking, it's self-governing. The different parts of the republic keep each other in check. A democracy does not. A democracy gets out of hand, turns into a tyranny, and that's how things work. So you get from the republic, you go into the empire, and you basically have the fall of society. I was kind of going into the architecture. Now I'm going to go back over here. Okay, Nebuchadnezzar's dream. You have the head of gold in Daniel, and you have Babylon, the head of gold, and that lasts less than 100 years, right? And then you have Medo-Persia, and this lasts about 200 years, right? And then you have Greece, and that lasts about that long, right? And I, yeah, these dates. And then you have pagan Rome, the legs of iron, lasting here. Now, each one of these lasted less or more from one time to another, and this right here, that's their thought process on what it is. I think we can just see that in the whole world today, right? And I think these were more whole world than what we were taught to believe. Okay. And I think some of the architecture like this that we're seeing today, that we're saying, oh, the Romans did it. I think some of this stuff was already there. Okay. There's obviously like, there's some of it that was probably pre-flood. Some of it was probably immediately post-flood. Some of it was probably after the Tower of Babel. You've got some time periods there biblically that these fit into better. And we've got different types of architecture that we apply to different time periods that I don't think that they really fit in properly. And we tend to apply them to certain areas of the world when they're all over the world, right? And I think we need to rethink all of this. And this right here, I have a little mini rant. This is how roads should be built. Just because the top of the pavement looks pretty or cement looks pretty does not mean you should not have a good foundation. We've got brick roads in some of these towns out here in the West that are still good to this day, and because they've got a good foundation under them. And this is how roads should be built. So Donnie's mini rant for the day. And then we've got things like this, these amazing pieces of architecture. And then we've got this one down here. And then we're going to say that anytime you see this anywhere else in the world other than Rome or Greece, it's copying the Romans and the Greeks. Okay, whatever you think. I think the Roman Empire was over a much larger period of time. And I think some of the older, bigger stuff wasn't even Roman to begin with. It was either Babylonian or pre-flood. Okay, my thought process right there. Or maybe it was Gilgameshian. Is that, can we make that a word? Gilgameshian or Nimrodian. Nimrodian. That's an interesting. Anyway, and then we've got these figures. Well, this is Roman, supposedly, even if it is on your coffee cup. And if this is on your coffee cup, I would just ask you to rethink it, please. I'm going to do a whole nother video on this scenario. Because Tiamat, not cool. And while these are Roman, this is all over the world. Okay. This is biblical. All right. So we've got some things that we're putting in Roman that's actually biblical. And we might look at something like this and it's like, if you soften this up a little bit, what time period would you put this in? All right. We've got art from early American art that looks very much like this. Very much. But if it's in Italy, it's a Roman fresco or whatever. If it's in America, it's early American colonial. This print here, if it's in Rome or over there in Europe, it's a Roman mosaic. If you see something like this in America, it's early American colonial, or somebody's copying it, right? And I was looking at this stuff and I'm like, my goodness, how do we tell the difference? I mean, you see stuff like this coming out of Russian things. Very, very similar art, right? This right here, if you had little white wigs on them and the little hose, and you'd put that in early colonial America, just the way the rabbits and the animals and these this artistic design with it, just very. This, did you guys know this is actually a building in the back? On his back is like a 3-story building, and there is a creature right here that he's like petting or grabbing or something, and I don't think it's fish. Okay. There are drawings of this from the 1500s. It was supposedly carved in the 1500s. Yeah. And supposedly somewhere in this is actually a dragon on his back or something too. It's really weird. And look at these. I see these stone looking in America along riverbanks. Very, very similar. Because this is Italy, somebody built this. If it's in America, this would have been destroyed, and this is considered strata, or the water did it, right? Oh my goodness. This same thing. Some of this art style, and I'm not saying people can't copy each other, there's nothing new under the sun, right? So whenever I do a piece of art, like the Star Chronicles, the drawings that I did in there in the coloring book pages, I'm not going to sit here and say they're unique. They're something different. It's what I did, because do you know how hard it is to find modest pictures, child-friendly pictures from Roman or Greek art? Yeah, it's a thing. So anyway, here we've got, I think, Mithra, maybe. Again, very, and this could be from the medieval-ish time period. And I'm not sure. Okay, I've got this theory. And tell me in the comments what you think. I have this theory that the Middle Ages didn't really happen. Okay. Patterns of evidence, and I'll put a link in the description. Patterns of evidence I might see if I can actually find it. Patterns of evidence proved to me that see if I can spell. Kind of proved to me, well, what on earth did you do? Yeah, there we go. Proved to me that the Egyptian narrative and timeline, I do not quite know why I did that, was stretched out. That they took it and they stretched out the Egyptian timeline. So patterns of evidence, they've got these documentary films. No, I'm not signing up for your patterns of evidence in going through the Exodus, and how the time periods of the pharaohs was stretched out, and that if you put it back together, and then things fit more properly like they should be. I think that also happened in the Middle Ages. I think the Middle Ages were stretched out about 700 years. This is just my personal hypotheses. I'm not even going to say it's a good theory. Just my personal hypotheses, that I think there was about 700 and some odd years that were stretched out in the Middle Ages, that a lot of things that are in like the Middle Ages that supposedly happened, all that amazing architecture that the monks built, were I think that was I think they took things from Old Testament times, from pre-flood, and put them there. Like, okay, you've got this is Roman, but does it not look to you very similar to Celtic knots? Right? Well, they got it from the Romans. They were copying the Romans. I mean, how are you going to say that? We've got architecture that is the same all over the world. We have art that is the same all over the world. And then you're trying to tell me that people wore nothing but robes and sandals for thousands of years. And then all of the sudden, in what, the 1600s, they all of the sudden discovered buttons and buckles. I'm having a hard time with that. So I think, what time period are you going to put this in? And what country are you going to put it in? If you don't know where it's coming from, then where are you going to put that? You could make a story about this woman in this piece of art, and if you don't know that it's a Roman mosaic, she's got earrings, there's different things going on here. The pearls maybe kind of give it away that it might be Mediterranean. I don't know how many, but I bet some of the Asians had pearls, I bet there were more people that had access to pearls. And I think that these were more worldwide than what we think. We've been taught and given the impression that this was only in the Middle East, right? And I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I believe that a lot of the architecture that we see, I think we can basically tell what was pre-flood, what would have survived that cataclysmic event. Okay, Machu Picchu, the Great Pyramid, there are some things that maybe would have survived that kind of cataclysm. And the weathering and stuff that we see around those places fits, right? If we just think about it with common sense and visually, that looks like that maybe could have made it through a cataclysm, right? But then we have, and we have immediately post-flood, and we have what, Nimrodian time period or Gilgameshian time period, however you want to put that. So that was like Babel time period, right? And people get scattered all over the world. And so, they were building cities at that time. And we don't tend to think, because we're still back in the caveman days, and there were no caveman days. Okay. That did not happen. Adam and Eve, God did not put them in a cave with skins on and tell them to fend for themselves. That's not how it went. He made them clothes out of wool, and it was very different. So and they knew things. They knew a lot more than we did. And they had 900 years of life to figure a lot of things out, right? If I had 900 years to figure things out, then I'd be a lot further, in the next couple of 100 years than what I am right now, right? And as many things as I have learned in my time, I've learned how to knit and crochet. I'm learning how to use a drop spindle and spin my own yarn. By the time I got to the next 100 years, I might be making my own shoes and, doing a lot of different things. We might build our own house, right? So now building a city is not in my radar, not something I want to do ever, ever. I don't like cities, so I'll just say that. Give me the garden, not the city, right? But I think these things, these time periods, these kingdoms or empires spread out a lot further than what we have thought that they did, and made an impression on all of the world. Okay. If they were in the Bible and he was considered the head of gold, it wasn't just because of the impression that they made on Israel at the time. It was the impression that they were making on the whole world. Okay. Because, by this time, some of the somebody was needing the electrician. Now that the phone has, where was I? Let's see, share screen. Yeah. So I do believe that each one of these took up a lot more space in physically across the plane than what we have given them. Okay. So what if some of this architecture that we have seen is Babylonian architecture in a different way than what we've been taught? What if some of it is Medo-Persian architecture? We can see that, definitely, the Persian architecture. We can see that in different parts of the world. If we think about it, it's like, okay, where do we see examples of Persian architecture all over the world? You can think of it, can't you? Okay. It's more prevalent in some parts of the world than it is in others, but we can see Persian type architecture all over. We see Babylonian type architecture all over. If we look at that architecture and we look at what is happening, what we see around us, we can see that, right? And not that architects can't come in and copy something, right? But we can see this. We can see Greek architecture and Roman architecture all over. The closer we get to here, the more of it that we see, but we still see some like really big stuff. There's a lot that's attributed to Rome. Definitely Rome. There is a lot that is attributed to Rome that I think some of it is older and should be actually put in a different time period. Just personally, that's my thought process, okay? And I just think we tend to put our thinking and God and history in this little box that we think this is how it is. And even as our box starts to change shape or get bigger, we still have it, either in the box or really close to the box, right? Because it's hard to just break out of that box completely, right? And say, oh, it doesn't. So we have Egyptian, and Shelley at No Place Like Home just talked about Washington, D.C. So, we have the Roman and the Greek style here throughout. And if we go and we look at some of this stuff, I bet we could find some other styles of architecture, right? That fit in to different time periods in the thought process. If we weren't told that this city was built in the 17 and 1800s, then what would we actually think about some of these architectural designs? And then you start getting into the art. I mean, I hate ads. And then you start getting into the art and stuff. Oops, where'd I go with it? Sorry, guys. So that and that. And yeah, that might be a lot newer. And, why not take some styles of some old architecture that actually worked, and then, repurpose, and use that. But then there's other things like this that worked really well that we don't reuse. And can you tell me why? Can you tell me why we aren't still creating roads like this? But we are still supposedly creating bridges like this. And then we had buildings, like some of these buildings that we still can't even, I shouldn't have clicked into that one, that we still can't even, there we go. Oh, it made it really tiny. There we go. How much do you think it would cost to build something like this today? Just thinking about this. Here's supposedly some people down here. And here, oh, there's a person supposedly right there. Okay. That's huge. Granted, it's maybe not as big as this, but it almost kind of makes me wonder with all the layers of this, how much of this there might actually be underneath, how much more there might be. But still, there's a person right there. And if we wanted to rebuild this today, if I wanted to build one of these in my backyard today, how much do you think it would cost me to do that? But yet, supposedly people in the 17 and 1800s did this with horse and cart or even steam whatevers. I mean, my husband has a case ditcher, okay? And he wouldn't be able to pick up one of those pillars. He wouldn't be able to with his ditcher, okay? And they didn't have that back then. So I'll just put it that way. I don't care what your steam. Even if you had old big red, you're not going to pick up some of these pieces. I mean, and then we have roads that we've created that we have to redo every year. I mean, and take years and years to build a halfway decent road. And it just makes my brain hurt. It really does. Oh, and if you have some, I need to exit out of some of these. I've got way too many things pulled up. I have a couple of YouTube channels that I wanted to suggest. If this is something that you're interested in, that I think you guys might like. One of them is this Legends of History. He does a really, really good job. He goes into biblical things. He also goes into some of the strange and unusual things. He does some on the Book of Giants. He does some things from the Book of Enoch. He does some of the different creatures in myth, you know, and their history, where biblical and extra biblical accounts of these different creatures and stories and things like that, and trying to put the pieces together. And he just does a really good job. And they're not like animated, but they're neatly illustrated. Very interesting. I don't think I've seen that one on the Mark of the Beast. Very interesting. So anyway, lots of interesting stuff, and I definitely suggest his channel, Legends of History. Another one, most of theirs are pretty clean, other than whenever you get into some of the stories that they're taking them off of aren't clean. Okay, let's just, not all the Bible stories are clean. These are their playlists. But he's a historian, and she does literary and goes into the myths and legends. They do a really good job of taking these and putting them into kind of a nutshell of history type thing. They've got a whole thing on the Roman Republic, ancient Mediterranean history. Excellent. And they've got miscellaneous myths and, yeah, European and American history. They really, they're very interesting. I don't agree with Sarcastic Productions on some of their ideals, but their videos are fun, entertaining, and very interesting, and they do the research. They do a good job with the research. So if you're interested in looking more into Roman history and why things look so similar today, and why people might be thinking about the Roman Empire a lot, definitely look at these two channels and see what they've got. And yeah, I just, like I said, seriously, America, Italy. I don't know if you got those little people down there next to those columns, and then you've got these people next to those columns, and you're gonna say this was a copy. I'm just questioning, right? Like Shelley says, question the narrative, right? So anyway, hopefully I've kind of, you know, I don't know if I've helped. If not, you guys are just used to my rambling or getting used to it by now, right? What do you think? I mean, does it make sense to you that we're seeing all these different things, and that Rome is given credit for all this huge architecture? That basically little bitty country that supposedly spread out and built these great roads, while at the same time or earlier, all up and down South America, there's a road there that's even bigger and probably better, honestly. And that has lasted that long, but yet we spend how much money working on roads today, especially in America. It's ridiculous, the money that gets spent on roads. It is absolutely ridiculous. Roads and schools. Roads and schools. It's like I probably educated 6 children, home educating, on less than 1 child gets educated through probably 1 grade in the institutions. And why? You know, I mean, I have electricity. I have a roof that needs replaced. I have, you know, basically all the same expenses that they've got. I had to buy books. I had to, you know, buy desks and things. Admittedly, I enjoy secondhand shopping and, you know, uh, trying to be frugal with my money, where they like to buy brand new things from companies that their friends own, you know, at a higher rate so that they get kickbacks and all of that kind of stuff. And anyway, that's a whole nother topic, except that I do think I think it fits into it. I think it fits into it because it all works in together, right? The taxes for the big people to feel bigger, and the not taxes, the fees, the required mandatory fees and things that, yeah, they're taxes, right? On top of everything, on top of everything, on top of everything. Yeah. It's just it's a wonder people are kind of thinking about this kind of stuff, and especially with everything that's happening. You know, I think we're beginning to wonder when the coliseums are going to end up with people in there that don't want to be in there for show. I mean, at this point, I think we're getting closer. So anyway, at the same time, we have read the end of the book. If you have not read the end of the book, the book of Revelation gives a special blessing for those who read it or listen to it being read. Okay, so the audio book on Audible doesn't cost very much. There's audio books that are on YouTube that you can listen to. There's even audio Bible in podcast form. And the Book of Enoch is available that way as well, and the Apocrypha and all the other extra biblical books or extra canonical books, however you want to put it. They're all available. You know, even if it doesn't all make sense, you get a blessing for listening or reading. So even if it doesn't seem like it's making sense, don't worry about it. Just go through it, read it, and at the end of the book, we get to participate in the marriage supper of the Lamb, and we get to be a part of the new heaven and the new earth in the kingdom. And so whenever we're praying, thy kingdom come, thy will be done, I mean, that's basically what we're praying for. We're praying for his will to be done on earth right now, but we are also praying for that kingdom to come, so that we can be done with all the politics stuff, right? Anybody else tired of politics? I am so tired of politics. And I am a politically oriented person. I will like being involved and stirring up the pot every once in a while. So but I am at this point really tired of it. Anyway, I thank you so much for being here. And I hope that this was interesting or shed some light on some of the things that are going on and just add a little extra thought process to your day today. And I welcome your comments. You guys are amazing. You guys have always have some really great thoughts down there and encouragement, and I really appreciate that. And if you think of something else, pop me some information. And I know you can't leave me links, but um a keyword that I can look up or something if there's something that you would like for me to see. I'm always interested in looking up more. So I really like this kind of stuff. Anyway, hopefully that'll help. I think I'm going to grab our youngest son and see if he wants to play a game of Age of Empires with me now. And I might play, I usually play the Byzantines, but maybe I'll play the Romans this time. If you haven't subscribed, hit the like, the subscribe, leave a comment. It really does help. I'm trying to get up to the point where I can get monetized because they put ads on my videos anyway. I would really like to get a little bit of money to pay for those and, help keep the lights on here. And the magazine, the fall magazine, is going to be coming out end of October. So if you haven't subscribed to that yet, it is not just for homesteaders. It is biblically based sustainable living where you are. And the fall 2023 edition, we're going to be talking about traditions, and we're going to have some gift guide type stuff in there. So some gift ideas. You won't want to miss it. So pop on over to prairiedashtrail.com and subscribe and check out what else I've got there. Got lots of stuff. So, and leave me any questions in the comments. I really appreciate it. We will see y'all later. And remember, you can weather the dust storms of life with God's divine help.